RPG Book Club Movie Nights, the podcast where in this case, we watch a very related movie. Usually we're not this related, but we watch a movie related to a game that we recently played and then talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I'm the game professor, a.k.a. Sam2, a.k.a. Other Sam. There are more, but I forget.
And today we will be discussing Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the literal sequel to the game that we just played. I think this is the most related we've done, except for back before we recorded movie nights and we watched the Persona 3 anime when we watched Persona 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the only way to make it more related would be a straight adaptation of the thing. So, yeah.
But, how's you guys' week?
I saw the Mario movie.
Was it good?
It was the better of the two video game movies I watched this week.
Shots fired.
It's like the plot isn't that good and the character development isn't really there, but it's beautiful. It has a lot of fun. It does fan service very well, and I'm a fan of Mario.
I can see that.
I
assume
enjoyed it.
This is fan service in the has references sense, not like the anime sense.
Yes, there was
not a bunch of scantily clad Princess Peach or whatever.
Only in the fan art. I will say that there are a ton of background Kongs in this movie that have half a second of screen time each, and each of them is going to have a mountain of fan art.
No.
Good.
But yeah, I liked it. Hot take, Chris Pratt was pretty good. He wasn't amazing, but he was pretty good.
Yeah.
I've heard various takes.
When he has a bad line read, it's a bad line, and a great actor can overcome that. And so he didn't do great because he didn't overcome it, but yeah, he did good.
Yeah, I mean, he did good in the Lego movie too, so I wasn't expecting it to be awful. But
yeah,
the standout bad performance is Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong.
Oh no.
But Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong is great. Jack Black as Bowser is inspired.
Yeah.
One thing I liked is, Mario and Princess Peach have the classic cartoon sexual dimorphism, which is, of course, inherited from that just being the designs of these characters from back in the 80s. But they, despite them having that dimorphism, Princess Peach is still really animated. Like, her face is she'll make weird faces and move in cartoony ways. So I liked that.
Yeah, because way too often when that's the case is you have a anime girl and a Saturday morning cartoon man, and it just feels not the same content. So I'm glad that she still is mushy and animated.
Yes. And but yeah, if you like Mario, if you love that wacky plumber and his exploits, I think it's worth watching. It has lots of problems, but if they make a sequel, I'll keep drinking that garbage.
Yeah, it's also important that it's the only kids movie in theaters right now.
The Alamo Drafthouse was overrun with children, and every freaking one of them was holding a Bowser plush or something. It was ridiculous just how much the Mario movie was the only thing happening at that theater.
Yeah. I am going to go watch it with the kiddos on Tuesday the 18th, because it'll probably still be in theaters, but most of the people who want to see it will probably have seen it and will be watching it during school on the 18th, because Storm is a tiny little kid who doesn't shut the fuck up, and I'm trying to be respectful of other people's movie-going experience. Yeah.
Sounds good. But yeah, you'll like it. It's like if you are someone who likes Mario and you take your kids to go see it, you're going to have a good time too.
Mm-hmm. I also like when animated movies do animation things. And just from the trailer, I could tell I was going to like Mario. Just even if it was hot garbage, it was pretty enough to be an interesting animation study that I was going to enjoy it.
It's very pretty. Speaking of that, there was a trailer for some new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and that is a media intellectual property I have never engaged meaningfully with. But that movie sure had an art style to it.
Oh, yeah. I saw that too just recently when I saw the D&D movie. It's a lot.
The influence of Spider-Verse, I love it. Everyone was like, oh, we can make animation look really weird now.
Yeah. I'm so glad that Spider-Verse had the balls to do it, to tell everybody it's okay, because it's like all these animators had the ideas in their pocket, but maybe studio execs, maybe market pressure, whatever. Like everyone was just chasing Frozen. And so then Spider-Man came out, made $1 billion, had all of these things. And we have a bunch of different inspired by Spider-Verse, but not doing the Spider-Verse thing movies since then, that it's a fantastic time to like animated movies.
I'm sure like a lot of the artists and like visual creative people wanted to do shit like this along, and then Spider-Verse won an Oscar, and finally it became a lot easier to convince people to let them do weird, crazy shit.
I'm glad. What about you, Negasam? What was your week like?
Well, my cat might have liver problems. Had to take her to the vet.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, that happened. I saw the D&D movie, which was a lot of fun. My partner's been sick, so that, it's been a mixed week, I suppose.
Yeah, I really want to see D&D.
Sounds good.
Yeah, one of those is good. The others aren't so much.
It's weird that one, there's a D&D movie out, and two, apparently it's good.
Yep.
Yeah, the last time there was a D&D movie out, it was not good. It was not good at all.
When was that even?
I wouldn't say at all.
2000.
Because Jeremy Irons absolutely killed it in that movie. He's a delight. But everything else about it's just awful. And yeah, it was like 1 or 2 years before New Line Cinema made Lord of the Rings. Quite a weird gap in quality there.
It was definitely not the time to make fantasy and take it seriously. So it was late 90s making fun of things to try and take the piss out of itself so that it could exist. And it doesn't work to varying degrees. The biggest thing is there's no dungeons and no dragon and no Dungeons and Dragons lore in the movie. It's all made up bullshit and doesn't work the way that it should.
All right.
But sounds like a D&D I would run.
Yeah. But as for me,
it not being good.
As for me, 2 things happened this week. One of them might have happened 2 weeks ago, so I might have already talked about it. But I played Magical Kitties Save the Day, which is a tabletop role-playing game where you are magical kitties who save the day. And it is relatively rules simple. So I played it with Scarlett, and Scarlett really, really liked it. And Powered by the Apocalypse is only like maybe 3% more complicated. In some ways, it's less complicated. And Glitter Hearts is a Powered by the Apocalypse thing. So the Magical Girl campaign that I was getting off the ground with Summer and her best friend Deanne, putting that on hold for a couple of months so that Scarlett will be able to play with us, which means I'm going to be in the meantime starting a Pathfinder 2 campaign. And I got big ideas, and they're probably not good, and also don't follow the lore of Pathfinder, and also takes the piss out of itself so that it can exist. But yeah, I've been working on that, and I'm getting pretty excited. And other than that, I feel it doesn't help that we ask the same question on 2 of the 3 podcasts we record every week. So I feel like nothing has happened for me since the last time we recorded, because that was only a couple of days ago, but it was a different podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the other thing I did this week is I watched Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. So let's listen to some music and talk about the game, though, the movie.
We'll probably talk about the game too.
Sam, did you take notes?
Yes, I did. Cool. This is my first time doing summaries for this podcast, so if it is too detailed, I'm sorry. Much like the game, this movie is kind of weird in that sometimes the dialogue is simplistic or silly, but there's actually a decent amount happening in it. So, yeah, so we'll see.
Sometimes the dialogue is dilly-dally, shilly-shally.
I have feelings on that. I'm sure we'll talk about it. So the movie begins where the game left off, recreating the future scene of Nanaki jumping to the top of a cliff and overlooking an overgrown Midgar, before jumping back to 598 years later. 498 years later? I think I wrote that wrong.
498 years later,
498 years later for a brief scene between 2... oh, gosh. That's what I have written, but I'm bad at talking, apparently. Okay. So it does that, and then jumps back 498 years earlier for a brief scene between 2 mysterious men, one of whom is in a wheelchair. And then it jumps another 2 weeks back to the Turks undergoing an operation in the Northern Crater. The
and operation... you might ask, did anything happen in that scene with the 2 men? No.
I mean, not really, yeah. It's foreshadowing, I guess. I don't... But yeah, so the operation in the Northern Crater goes south. We don't see exactly how, because the helicopter is down in the crater, obscured by fog. But Song and Elena do not make it out. So
Song, then who notably is alive? Question mark?
So we are then introduced to a prominent character in this movie, Marlene, who gives viewers a very truncated rundown of the game's story.
I feel like this part of the movie where she's explaining the story is terrible. 1, I think it's terribly executed, and 2, trying to explain the lore of Final Fantasy VII is in a short, easily digestible time span. I don't think anyone is up to the task of making that scene actually work. I think they should have just said, fuck it, hope you played the game.
Yeah, as someone who actually saw this movie for the first time before I even knew what Final Fantasy VII was, it's not like it helps.
Yeah,
if you haven't played the game, you're going to have no idea what's going on here regardless.
I wouldn't expect it to help.
You guys are missing the point of this. This is not a helpful reminder for people to understand the plot of Final Fantasy VII so they can watch this movie. This is a reason for them to remake all of the cutscenes with their new HD models. And that is it.
Okay, fair enough.
All of the things that they do are the hits. It's all, oh, that was a really good scene. Let's show that scene in HD. It was not there to tell a coherent story. It was so you could watch Aerith get murdered in HD.
Which I suppose that is the truth of this whole movie.
Pretty much.
It's not there to tell a coherent story, just to be all of your favorite characters in glorious 2005 CG.
According to the Final Fantasy wiki, the idea for the movie came about after Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, where the secret ending is a CGI action sequence of two people fighting. And Nomura said, it would be cool to have a full movie with lots of cool fight scenes. We should do one for Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I saw that.
About right.
That's
the entire second half of this movie is fight scenes. So,
and they rule.
They really do.
So now it is 2 years after the events of the game, and there's a plague in Midgar called the Geostigma. It's thought to be the planet's revenge for all that humanity had done to it, and there is no cure that anyone's found so far. Marlene has a friend, a new character named Denzel, and he's sick with it. Then we cut to Tifa in her new bar as the phone rings off the hook for Cloud, who is not there, and she doesn't seem to know where he is. Tifa picks up, answering for Strife Delivery Service, and Reno tells her they have a job for Cloud. Who we then cut to. Well, actually, we cut to a wolf standing on the cliff where Zack died with the Buster Sword, like, just stuck in the ground there.
There's a whole thing with Cloud and a wolf. Was that a thing? Is Cloud a wolf guy? Is that his persona?
That's a thing that's introduced in this movie.
Yeah, it's his icon as of this movie, but I don't think it's come up at all in the game.
They were like, oh, shit. Squall is a lion guy. Cloud has to be a guy of some sort.
I'm sure it has some kind of like, metaphorical significance for his character arc in here or something, but, we'll talk about it when we get to there, I guess. But yeah, the Buster Sword's sitting there rusting in memorial to Zack, I suppose, because Cloud doesn't seem to be using it. And Cloud's there and he takes off on a motorcycle. But as he does so, he catches the attention of three strange people who are evil because one of them intentionally knocks down the Buster Sword. So he sucks.
Also, they're gay-coded as fuck, so you know they're evil.
That's fair. They are, yeah. The three talk about how Big Brother lives there in Midgar and Mother must be with them. They speak kind of weirdly, and one of them accuses the other of crying before bursting into tears himself. They seem emotionally immature, is the point. Two of them chase Cloud in their motorcycles in a pretty stylish action scene while the third talks on the phone, asks for the president. He calls the other two off, leaving Cloud to wonder what the hell just happened. Cloud has a bunch of voicemails. It seems like no one really knows where he is or what he's doing, because he has those from a bunch of his friends who all don't know what's up, and he's not picking up. So he goes to meet with the wheelchair-bound man after a brief, kind of funny encounter with Reno and a simple threat toward Rude to make him back off. The wheelchair-bound man turns out is Rufus Shinra. He tries to explain how the hell he survived that explosion, but Cloud threatens to leave if he doesn't get to the point, saving the writers from having to explain his implausible survival.
I actually love this. I found it hysterical how Rufus is he just keeps talking about how I was able to escape, and Cloud's just like, shut the fuck up. I'm leaving.
Yep.
It is, and also it comes right after, this is a memorable moment, but I'll go ahead and say it. It comes right after Cloud like dodges Reno, and Reno like sort of trips and falls out the door, and then Cloud shuts the door behind him. Then Reno opens it. It's like, okay, you're good. And then Cloud slams it shut and locks it.
Yep.
Which is very funny.
And then just throughout the rest of the scene, Reno's just like occasionally commentating from outside the door. It's very good.
Yes, I love it. Very some surprisingly effective humor in this scene, which I would not expect from 2005 Square Enix.
This reminds me, did you guys play in did you watch it with the dub or the sub?
I watched the dub.
I've seen both, but I watched the dub.
I watched the sub, and Reno in the Japanese was especially fantastic here. I don't know if he was good in the dub or not. I haven't seen the dub.
He's fantastic in the dub.
He's so like good. The best actor in it in the dub.
It's Quentin Flynn in the dub, who is best known as being Raiden in the Metal Gear games. And he's fantastic.
And being second best known for being a sex pest.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. But he is good in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what happens next?
Rufus is postulating that the geostigma is not, in fact, from the planet as an act of vengeance, but that it's Sephiroth's consciousness still living within the life stream causing this problem somehow, and we'll get more info on that later. That Turk mission a bit ago was an attempt to confirm this theory, but they were ambushed by the 3 guys, one of which is named Kadaj, and the other 2 have names probably, but I don't know them.
Yazoo and Laws. Are Yuzu and Laws, which those sure are some names.
They are.
Yazoo.
I will forget them again when it comes time to talk about them, I'm sure, but
yeah,
I appreciate you knowing them. So, according to Rufus, those 3 are trying to resurrect Sephiroth because they themselves are remnants of Genova, genetically speaking. So he asks for Cloud's help, suggesting they could help the Midgardian orphans that Cloud's apparently taken under his wing. But then Reno chimes in, suggesting they could rebuild Shinra, and Cloud is immediately turned off from the idea and leaves. So meanwhile, Tifa and Marlene are visiting the church where Aerith's flowers are still blooming, and they find bandages with signs of the stigma on them, which I guess Cloud must have been living there or something, because they think that that means that Cloud has the stigma. I don't know why they think Cloud was there, but yeah.
Well, there's some, like, camping gear there that suggests someone is staying there.
That's true.
And I think they say, like, is Cloud living here? Or Marlene asks if Cloud's living there or something.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so the implication is that Cloud also has geostigma. We cut back to the Turks because this movie can't stay on a scene for more than a minute. And they're talking about how they kind of want atonement for their part in Shinra and everything that went wrong, but they're interrupted by Kadaj, who has business with Rufus. He's looking for a piece of Genova that Rufus apparently still has, saying the reunion is once again at hand and the invitations have already been sent out. The geostigma. So Rufus was right about that. Kadaj seems to have a complex about being a remnant of Genova, saying they need her cells if they want a true reunion, and that he has Sephiroth's genetics as well. Or at least that's kind of implied.
His genetics, his memetics.
Yeah, the Genova's memetic legacy or something. Yeah.
Genova's memes.
Yeah. Genova's meme folder. That's definitely, yeah, that's important. So this is actually, it occurs to me now is the time that it'll be important to specify this. We watched the complete edition, or at least I did, and I think one of you did too, right? At least
I did.
Both of us did.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we will be talking, like, if you only have seen the original version, we'll be talking about a couple scenes that aren't in that. So we get a scene of backstory for Denzel, which was added in the complete edition, which is nice, because in the original, he was just some random kid that we didn't really know anything about. So he finds Cloud's phone. It's like a backstory thing, so it's a while ago. He finds Cloud's phone and tries to call his old home, but it was in Sector 7, so that doesn't work. He calls the first contact in the phone instead, getting Tifa. So he has a geostigma episode after that, but Cloud finds him, wakes him up, and takes him to 7th Heaven. And now we're back in the present as Denzel is trying to help 2 infected orphans on the street.
Denzel's sort of emotional breakdown when he's on the phone with Tifa is real good shit.
It is, yeah. That and just the moment of, like, of calling and just having that thing saying, like, the phone isn't available, repeating it over and over again with the visuals implying that, it's because his home was crushed under Sector 7. It's nice. It's a good character bit.
Mm-hmm.
So Cloud is back at the cliff where Zack died, and he sets the Buster Sword back upright, remembering Zack for a moment so viewers who haven't played the game can know what happened, even if they probably still won't understand it. Cloud expresses guilt that he swore he'd never forget that he would be his living legacy, but, did anyway in the events of the game, and remembers Sephiroth saying he can't feel grief because he's just a puppet, so that seems to still be haunting him. So, one of the remnants, I think, Yuzu? That one?
Laws.
Laws, okay. Appears in the church.
Why do I
Tifa
remember which one is which and all that shit? Why?
Good question, because I still don't. The kind of bulky one, the one that looks like, like the brute, the himbo, except not nice. I don't know. So he shows up in the church with Tifa and Marlene, asking them where Mother is. He comes across the flowers that grow there, but reacts with revulsion, calling them gross. So Tifa kicks his ass to a dope piano rendition of the game's battle theme.
This
is
scene
very awesome.
Owns. It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah, it's genuinely very, very cool. The bit where he, like, throws her across the room, but then she just lands on her feet on the wall with all the flower petals all over. Like, it's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the image on the Japanese theatrical release poster, according to Wikipedia.
No, that's not surprising. It is one of the coolest single images in the movie.
Like, you go to Wikipedia, and that's the poster that they have on there. It's great.
That's very good. So yeah, battle is awesome. Tifa kicks his ass pretty handily, and then his cell phone goes off with the Final Fantasy Victory theme in a nice little joke there. He picks it up, says Mother isn't here, insists he's not crying once again, and then just absolutely destroys Tifa, like, immediately. But before he
he has like a weapon thing, and he uses it.
Yeah, it's like a punching thing. Yeah.
And he can, like, warp.
That's true. He can just, like, warp, I guess. One of those, like, why didn't you do that before things, but, you know, still. But before he can deliver the killing blow to Tifa, Marlene throws a materia at him.
That's not how you use that.
No, not quite. So he takes Marlene as well as the box of materia. Cloud arrives sometime later and finds Tifa, but suffers a geostigma episode and faints. We see him in, like, a white dreamscape area where the wolf is once again there. And then he wakes up in a bed with Tifa in another bed next to him. A separate bed, unfortunately. But Reno and Root are there, who they apparently got them and brought them here. They're saying that Cloud's orphans are gone, and even then, despite that, Cloud can't seem to bring himself to act. So he sticks around, and when Tifa wakes, she says she knows Cloud has geostigma, but he shouldn't give up anyway. Cloud says he's not fit to help anyone, but Tifa says dilly-dally, shilly-shally, and probably the weirdest and least functional translation choice in the entire movie. Apparently, it's meant to suggest that he should move on and do what he can, which, yeah, but...
It's one of those times where you really wish you knew Japanese really good and you could know what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah. I actually originally saw this before it got localized with a fan sub, and I wish I remembered what they said in that, because I liked it better.
Maybe I can find some, like, someone explaining dilly-dally, shilly-shally.
I mean, I've looked it up. It basically just means, you're messing around, which isn't, like, I don't know, that's not what she's saying here. It doesn't fit. And it's also just like dilly-dally is a thing, but shilly-shally is not nearly as common. It exists. It's not pulled out of nowhere, but it's not common enough to, like, immediately be understood. It's just a very strange bit of gibberish.
So it definitely was not in the one that it was not in the fan sub that I watched today. Who says it and when? I can look up and see what mine says instead.
Tifa, after Cloud, like, this is actually a little bit later than when I'm saying it, because this movie cuts around so much that I had to, like, truncate some scenes into one part, so I didn't have to just keep bouncing. But, yeah, it's when the two of them kind of, like, at night are in that room right before Cloud, or maybe as Cloud is, like, driving to the Forgotten City.
Okay. I'll see what they say.
Well, we'll just keep going while you do, I guess, and then, yeah.
It looks like, just from this article, which, who knows how accurate this article is, or how article this accurate is. Apparently, there she's saying, zuru zuru, which is an onomatopoeia for, like, dragging something along.
Yeah, I remember the onomatopoeia, so I don't have to look it up. It's something like now I'm blanking on it. But what Tifa just says, dragging, because the person before was like, oh, they're like dragging their feet, or got to drag your ass out of it, or something like that. And
yeah,
her
honestly,
saying,
that makes so much more sense.
And her saying it over and over again. Later, it flashes back to Aerith saying something like that, and so that's what, like, in the Japanese, he, like, hones in on her saying zuru zuru, and that's why he, like, looks over at her or something. It's because it sticks out to him, and then later it comes back as a thing that Aerith had said.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. It fits a lot more with what's happening with Cloud and what Tifa's trying to say.
But that makes it is, the dub, though, is very strange, because then later Aerith says dilly dally shilly shally, and I'm like,
Right.
We have two people who happen to say that very weird idiosyncratic thing.
Yep.
That's weird.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's I would like it known that I like this movie, and I will give it a passionate defense at the end of this, but there's some silly weird stuff. So okay, we go back to Denzel. The girl that he helped earlier, she actually had her brother, I guess, who had geostigma, but she comes up to Denzel and says that her brother is gone now. But she also says that someone will fix them and drags him to a meeting where Kadaj and his gang are recruiting infected kids and loading them into a truck.
Because, so those gay-coded villains you remember, they're abducting and brainwashing children.
Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah, well.
Moving on.
They take them to the Forgotten City, to the exact pool where Aerith was laid to rest, and Kadaj tells them that the planet is punishing them with geostigma, but he plans to fight against it. He walks into the water, which swirls with darkness around him, and tells the children to drink from it, which they do, Denzel included, but not Marlene, and it seems to awaken something in them. I suppose it's giving them Genova's cells, giving them the eyes of a soldier kind of type thing going on.
As they're walking in, it zooms in on their dirty, dirty shoes. And I'm like, oh my God, you're walking in the water with those dirty shoes, and then you're drinking the water. And also it's infected with Genova, but mainly that's the germs.
Kind of the biggest problem.
Anyway,
Cloud is on his motorcycle, riding to try and get the kids in the Forgotten City. And while he's doing so, he has a vision of Aerith. There's actually a really cool kind of moment where like he's on the motorcycle and then he's in that white void again, and he kind of like lurches forward like he still has the momentum of the motorcycle, but he's standing there. It's a nice animation touch. But anyway, she's standing behind him. The camera's having angles that kind of obscure her face. Cloud says he wants to be forgiven, and Aerith asks who he wants to be forgiven by before the vision ends. And the remnants are attacking Cloud, using the kids as a shield. Cloud says he only came for the kids, but Kadaj says that Cloud is their brother, but he's the black sheep of the family. Cloud is outmatched between the three of them, but a red wisp with a gun comes and spirits him away.
Hell yeah.
It's Vincent, who is still cool and edgy.
Except his shoes look a lot sillier in realistic graphics.
He's just watching everyone's shoes, huh? I honestly, I did not notice his shoes.
His shoes, he has big clown shoes.
So are we saying Vincent is secretly Sora? Is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
So yeah, Vincent explains a lot of what has been implied but not outright said so far. The geostigma is basically the result of the body overcompensating in an attempt to fight off Genova's genes. He says the Turks that had found Genova's head, and the remnants want Genova's head. Song and Elena were captured and tortured, and Vincent apparently has them and is attempting to nurse them back to health, but says that he's not sure if they'll pull through. So Marlene apparently escaped. I don't remember that being shown, but she shows up and hugs Cloud. Cloud's phone fell into the water during the fight, so he can't call Tifa, and Vincent doesn't have a phone, to Marlene's disgust. Cloud asks Vincent to take Marlene to Seventh Heaven, but Marlene gets mad at him for continuing to focus on everything except his little found family. So she goes to Vincent and hides in his cape, which is quite cute. And Vincent somehow manages to be the more emotionally intelligent of the two adults here, and asks Cloud if it's actually about needing to fight or if he's still running from something. We flash back, once again, to Cloud and Tifa from earlier in the room after the dilly-dally shilly-shally thing, and she accuses him of running away from everything and everyone. She asks which he'll choose, a memory or them. Then, flashing back to Aerith. Cloud says that he let her die, but she repeats Tifa's dilly-dally shilly-shally thing, which I guess we've already talked about. That's repeating the dragging onomatopoeia, and says, "Isn't it time you did the forgiving?" She says she never blamed him, and he came for her. That's what matters. So Cloud takes Marlene and heads to Midgar, and we see his phone sink to the floor of the river as we hear voicemail messages from Reeve, Yuffie, Barrett, Sid, and others showing how many people are here to support him if he only allows them to.
There's, in this, we have, very briefly, we hear Barrett say something about how he's doing something at an oil field, so keep looking after Marlene. And I find this hilarious for two reasons. One, eco-terrorist Barrett Wallace is now working in oil. Two, Barrett, for some reason, why isn't Barrett raising Marlene again? He finished fighting for the planet. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can work. I don't know.
I would have to assume that he's at Corel, like North Corel, trying to help them rebuild or something. But even then, like, just take her with you, bud. I don't.
Like, why does she need to stay at Edge, which is the name of the city that now exists on the edges of Midgar, which we didn't talk about? Why?
Yep. But all right, we go back to Midgar. This is about the halfway point of the movie, which means it's mostly fighting from here on out.
Yeah.
The two other remnants that aren't Kadaj have the kids all in a city square trying to destroy the statue in the center depicting the fall of Meteor to get to where they think Genova's head is hidden. They summon creatures to attack the angry townspeople. And Tifa sees Denzel and tries to help him, but he's unresponsive and still has the eyes of a Genova remnant. Reno and Rude try and fight the remnants after Reno accidentally admits to having Genova's head because he's a doof. Then we cut back to Cloud, bringing Marlene back to Midgar. She says she knows he's been trying to find a cure for the geostigma, which is apparently what he was trying to do by being out and about. He says he left because he felt he couldn't even take care of himself, let alone his family. Marlene does a very cute impression of Barrett to cheer him up. And now we've caught up to the scene from earlier with Rufus and Kadaj talking in Midgar. Kadaj reveals that he senses Sephiroth in the life stream and knows that Genova wants him more than Kadaj, to his sorrow. Then Kadaj uses a materia, one of the ones in that big crate from before, to summon Bahamut, specifically a new version of Bahamut called Bahamut Sin. It terrorizes Midgar, destroys the monument in the center of the square. The Turks fight the remnants, and the whole gang shows up to fight Bahamut. It's actually pretty hype when they all start showing up. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I'm like, there's been a lot of fan service, but I don't feel pandered to specifically. But then Barrett showed up in an extremely hot fishnet top. And I was like, okay, you got
I had
me.
completely forgotten about that costuming choice. It is
fantastic.
He looks good.
Yep. So Tifa goes off into the square to help, telling Denzel to get back to the bar, but he tries to help anyway because people are at risk and he doesn't want others to lose their families like he lost his. So he helps people run from the monsters, gathers his courage, all that good stuff. While everyone works together to do very little damage to Bahamut, Cloud finally shows up to finish the fight. He's got a cool multi-part sword now, and he adds pieces as the battle continues, slowly creating something akin to a new Buster Sword as it gets bigger. In an absolutely ridiculous sequence, everyone successively throws Cloud into the air to chase Bahamut into the sky, and then the final helping hand seemingly comes from Aerith, and Cloud destroys Bahamut. That whole sequence It's silly.
It's silly, yes.
Yeah. Also, though, Aerith's hand coming down to him and like a recreation of that shot from the end of Final Fantasy VII, actually kind of cool. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed that, even if the whole, like, everyone, like, there are literally, some of it is, you know, this is an anime thing, like, they're jumping really high and all around in the first place, but, like, some of this is people holding onto scaffolding and just, like, grabbing Cloud's hand and then throwing him upwards. Some of it's also people, like, jumping out into open air and then just throwing Cloud upwards, like, that makes any sense at all.
If you're gonna do all this bullshit, you might as well have Aerith at the end extend her hand and throw him upwards, is how I feel. So I'm glad they did it.
Yep.
Yeah. Before I was watching shit like this, and around this time, I was watching a lot of Japanese special effects films, and that this is straight out of those, like Cass Hearn, the new something. There's a Cass Hearn movie that is filled with shit that it's like this got a laugh in the writer's room and no one came back for a rewrite, and it made it all the way to the final film, and that's okay. It's so good.
Excellent. So, meanwhile, Rufus and Kadaj are still talking, and Rufus makes the big reveal. He's had Genova's head the whole time, and he tosses it off of the building they're standing on. Kadaj tries to blast him with some kind of materia spell, but Rufus dodges by falling off the building. The two are both falling off at this point, trying to shoot each other, and Rufus manages to hit the Genova container with a bullet in the meantime. Tsung and Elena show up just in time to shoot nets and catch Rufus, and Kadaj manages to land and get Genova's head. Cloud chases them in a sequence kind of reminiscent of the highway chase in the game. It's as cool as it is ridiculous. The Turks try to help too, but that goes about as well as you'd expect. They are the comic relief in this movie, so, you know. Though the movie does weirdly kind of imply that Reno and Rude blow themselves up to take out the remnants, they don't. They're still alive later, but it makes that implication.
Wait, when you said implies that Reno and Rude blow, I thought you were going to follow that up with each other, because also that.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely that. I don't know the particular of the jokes when Reno was hilarious earlier, but one of them is when Rude walks out and puts his glasses on. He's like, "Wow, you look so cool, Rude," is what Reno says from outside. So yeah, they're blowing each other.
Also, there's a scene where Reno and Rude get knocked down, and Reno is like climbing back up to his feet and steps on Rude's glasses, and Rude's like, "What?" And Rude stands up and takes another pair of sunglasses out of his jacket and puts them on.
It's honestly one of my favorite moments. He's just like got extra sunglasses with him, because why not? Like,
I've seen a few pieces of media do that gag, but it's always great. I always love it.
Yup. There's also a bit like right after that where the two remnants that they're fighting is like, oh, they're just like, oh, mother, like going on about it. And Reno's like, calm down. It's just Genova's freaking head. And they get really mad about it. Like, how dare you talk about mother that way? And he's like, whatever. Your mom's cool. And then he's like, oh, what am I saying? And attacks him. That's it's very silly.
It's very silly.
So Cloud continues in the pursuit of Kadaj, which takes them to the center of Midgar. The fight leads them progressively up the central tower of Midgar, and the gang could help. They show up in the airship, but they choose to hold off in helping him for the time being, knowing that he wants to fight this on his own if he can. I was prepared to call this, like, this is your fight bullshit, but actually, like, as they leave, there's a kind of nice shot of Cloud, like, in the middle of his fight, like, recognizing that they're flying away and smirking. Like, it's clear that this is something that he wants to do for himself if he can, and they just know that about him. So, you know, it works better than it otherwise could.
Although I do have to appreciate Yuffie being like, I don't get it. And Sid's like, this is man talk. And Barrett's like, men don't get it either.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm glad some of the characters also don't get it along with me.
Yep. So, Cloud manages to defeat Kadaj, but Kadaj takes what remnants of Genova's head for his own reunion as he falls from the tower, leading to another one of the coolest shots in the game as Kadaj manages to gently land on the floor where he's falling, but Cloud is like coming down at him with the Buster Sword, and Kadaj raises his hand, and as soon as Cloud lands, it makes a huge impact, and Kadaj is Sephiroth now.
It's so
like just
fucking
immediately
cool.
In that one moment. It is extremely cool.
It's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yup. So we get another very long fight scene. Cloud and Sephiroth are tearing Shinra Tower apart in their attempt to kill each other. Sephiroth has a bunch of dialogue here about needing to give Cloud a gift, and perhaps he'll give him to spare. He wants him to beg for forgiveness. Sephiroth eventually manages to impale Cloud on his sword and hold him up in the air in a shot that is iconic enough that Smash Brothers parodied it with Mario for announcing Sephiroth. So that's a thing.
The Sephiroth announcement trailer had a lot of stuff referencing specifically Advent Children.
Yes. At this moment, a single black wing erupts from his back before he throws Cloud into the air for a brutal set of strikes that leave him bruised and bleeding. I should note, because I didn't put this in the summary, but for some reason I didn't. I should have. During the fight with Kadaj, Genova's theme is playing, and it's extremely good. And during the fight with Sephiroth, One Wing, I don't need to tell you what's playing during the fight with Sephiroth. It's really cool, though.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. Battle on the Big Bridge from Final Fantasy V is playing.
Obviously.
Latoya's theme from Final Fantasy 1. Just So, before the killing blow that Sephiroth is going to deliver to Cloud, Cloud is once again in that white dreamscape, and Zack speaks to him, offering a hand if he needs it, but Cloud stands up, repeating that he is Zack's living legacy. He leaps into the air, separates his sword into all of its pieces, and they float around Sephiroth, and Cloud jumps from sword to sword, attacking Sephiroth from all sides, until Sephiroth is indeed destroyed. Cloud says that he should stay where he belongs, in his memories. He says he will never be a memory, but then wraps himself in his wing, and Kadaj is all that's left. Kadaj is too weak to fight any further, but Aerith's voice calls out to him, saying he doesn't have to hang on any longer, and everyone's waiting for him. He raises a hand to the sky, and in another homage to that shot near the end of Final Fantasy VII, an invisible hand pulls him up as his body dissolves. Rain pours over Midgar, curing its people of the geostigma. Cloud closes his eyes and takes in the rain, and then takes a bullet to the back. The other two remnants are there, saying they will go together. Cloud attacks them, and they attack back with multiple materia, and an explosion rocks the tower. Cloud floats through the life stream in silence. Zack and Aerith's voices are there, though. Aerith affectionately says that Cloud is too big to adopt, and Cloud just floats on by. Phones ring all across Midgar, which I guess is Aerith calling people's phones. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but it said that Aerith told them that Cloud would be there. So
I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But honestly, like, I believe if like just the kids with the Genova stuff heard Aerith's voice, like, sure, I could believe that. The phone touch is weird. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, people flock to Aerith's church, and Cloud wakes up floating in the water inside. Aerith somehow told everyone to wait there and Cloud would return. Sorry, I feel like I skipped something because there was a bit where they... Did I not include that? There was a bit where Cloud and Kadaj fight in Aerith's church. And, you know, as that's happening, there's a bunch of water that, like, starts, you know, geysering up from where the flowers are and causing, you know, a whole bunch of water in that church. So that's why there's water there. Sorry, I have a paragraph in here. I just didn't read it for some reason. So Cloud takes Denzel, who was inside during the healing rain and thus still has the geostigma, and pours the water over his head, metaphorically baptizing him and curing his geostigma. Other children jump in and everyone's saved. Cloud sees the figure of Aerith talking to some children, and then she turns and walks out the door with Zack. She says, "You see, everything's all right." And he says, "I know. I'm not alone. Not anymore." And then that's the end of Advent Children.
Yay.
Except for the credit scene where Cloud drives across America.
Yeah, I have to assume that there was just some animator who was like, I want to make Cloud drive on real roads. And they were just like, okay, sure, put in the credits, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it looks cool. Why not?
Tetsuya Nomura was like, fuck yeah.
And somebody was like, so I downloaded After Effects and we can make our credits, instead of going up, it can do a loop-de-loop. So we're going to do that too.
Yep.
It was 2005, man. Anything was possible.
Yup.
But yeah, so let's listen to another piece of music from this film. If we can get away with it, we'll listen to the Japanese My Chemical Romance song from the credits, and then we'll talk about the memorable moments.
And of my hopes and dreams, I'm for anyone. I keep them safe and sound. I know this picture is not yours anymore. What can you hear me now? That's up to me. We'll say that this is right.
So I want to talk a bit about the voice cast in this movie, because, you know, most of these characters, a lot of these characters at least, had been voiced earlier in Kingdom Hearts. But this was like the big times for we're going to hear these characters speak. Mm-hmm. And I watched the dub, and I find the dub interesting. For one thing, I want to say Steve Burton as Cloud Strife, I feel like did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I think what's his name? Cody Christian, who voices Cloud now since the remake. I like him better, but he's basically building on Steve Burton's interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Yeah. Also, Red 13. Remember all those great lines Red 13 had? All 2 of them?
Yep.
He was voiced by Liam fucking O'Brien.
Yep. Yes, he was.
What the fuck? That rules.
Yep. There's also Yuri Lowenthal in this movie as some random people, further hitting home that despite being a good voice actor who has had a decent amount of main roles, he mostly just does shit like that, and I don't understand why.
I feel like a lot of voice actors have that where, you know, you still take the sort of grunt work when you can get it.
Hilarious.
A gig is a gig.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Yuri Lowenthal is not listed on even the fandom articles credits under all the name characters, and also under additional English voices. Like Michelle Ruff, also a powerhouse, is there as just additional voices. Same with Wendy Lee, but Yuri Lowenthal didn't even make the additional voices. That's how little his part was.
Sheesh.
Also, I just find it interesting. This performance wasn't particularly good, but Laws, the Remnant, who's the big guy who fights Tifa, was voiced by Fred Tatasciore, or Fred Tatasciore. I don't know how
you
to
say his
it.
last name.
But I want to bring that up because in Final Fantasy VII Remake, he played Don Corneo and was like maybe the best performance in the game.
Yep. He's
so
a lot. He's one
wild.
of those that you don't hear his name all that often, but then you look him up on IMDb and it's like, oh, he's in everything.
Yeah, everything. He's probably in a bunch of other Final Fantasy stuff too, here and there. But yeah, mainly I know him as Don Corneo in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah. A lot of the dub isn't particularly good, and it's kind of weird. And also, it has a problem where, you know, they didn't have the resources, I guess, to reanimate the mouths for the dub. And when it's like a 2D anime, you can usually get away with that, but it looks real weird when it's realistic 3D. And some of the line reads have to be weird because of it, and I don't know. It's rough.
Yeah. So, speaking of not having the money and realistic 3D, I don't know if this was my copy, though my copy it's like 19 gigs, so I know it's like plenty big. But so I watched it on a 1080p monitor and on a 720p monitor, and in both cases, the hair textures did not have anti-aliasing and looked like a PS3 game because of it. I don't know if you guys noticed it, or if it's something with my copy or with the scaling of my monitor or my TV or something. But like every close up of Tifa, it looked like her hair was a PS3 game, which, I mean, 2006 was before the PS3, so it's a step forward for them, but still not a thing you normally see in movies.
Yeah, I sure didn't notice that.
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to look at like a HD screenshot to see if I see it anywhere else or not.
Huh, weird.
Yeah. Another thing, speaking of graphics, so when Tifa and Marlene come into the church and they look over and they're like, oh, Cloud was here. It shows his camping gear from like a ways off, and that includes the scarf on the top or whatever. That at the first glance I thought was a used condom for some reason.
No,
Cloud fuck. So obviously he was here.
Marlene's like, wait, is Cloud living here? And Tifa's like, oh, I wouldn't know. I don't know. I didn't come here.
So I found the Tifa versus Laws fight scene on YouTube to look at the hair thing. And one, I'm not seeing it. Two, God, this fight scene rules.
It's so cool.
I'm just watching it again now.
Yep. It's funny, actually, how much of the music in this movie is, because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of it existed already. Like the piano version of the battle theme was part of the Final Fantasy VII piano compilation. And the versions of Genova and One Winged Angel are by the Black Mages, Nobuo Uematsu's metal band. And they, that also is like, they'd already made that music from what I understand. So like, some of it they just kind of had already from official mixes, like remixes. So that's neat. It also has some original music that's pretty good, but yeah.
Yeah, the music in this movie is good.
Tell your cat I say hi.
Yeah, sorry. She's purring very loudly and occasionally making meow sounds and stabbing me to try and get me to pet her.
Well, you should pet her.
I am. It's never enough for her.
But yeah, this movie, it's definitely a movie that would have been better to watch in 2005 than post Final Fantasy VII Remake, because now we've seen all of our favorite characters with better graphics even.
Yeah.
Although I do gotta say, oh, you can go ahead.
Excuse me. I did not watch it back in the day, but I did absorb one cool thing from being next to people who had watched it, and it continues to be cool, even though incredibly stupid, because find you a movie that can do both. But the fact that Cloud has 7 Buster Swords that are actually one Buster Sword, and it's not clear if putting them together makes them stronger or what, but just like every time he's like, oh, now we're serious, let me click in another one of my 7 swords into this sword so I can have 2 swords at once, and eventually gets to all 7, and it's really cool. And you can buy one for $547 on Amazon right now if you really wanted one.
I buy all my 7-in-1 Buster Swords locally.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how much sense the sword makes, but it is cool, and it also functions as a relatively simple metaphor. Cloud's like sort of putting himself back together over the course of this movie in a lot of ways. He's broken himself apart, and he's needing to, just as the sword comes together, he is too. So, it's a functional little metaphor that probably doesn't make much practical sense.
Much like the movie, it's cool, doesn't make much practical sense, and is relatively functional.
Yep. I would actually argue that it is, thematically speaking, extremely, shockingly functional, but that's me, and I will get into it at some point in here, I'm sure. One thing I will say, I don't understand why. Okay, so the Turks are comic relief in this movie, which is interesting considering the whole. Like, we're just laughing, like, haha, isn't Reno silly? And then, you think back to Final Fantasy VII when he's like, well, it's just business. Anyway, I'm going to drop this plate on thousands of people.
Yeah.
It is odd to me that they put Elena on a bus for most of the time and then made Reno the comic relief. Because Elena's right there. She's great. I love her. And they could have, she's already kind of built in as the Turks comic relief. So I don't know. Weird choice, but Reno and Rude as a duo is good, so, it's fine.
Well, there's a problem with doing Alina as the comic relief, which is that she is in a duo with Sung. And Sung fucking died in Final Fantasy VII and shouldn't have come back because his death was a really affecting scene, and we mourned him, and it was good.
That's fair.
And it makes me mad that they brought him back, and then Kadash was like, we killed them. And then it's like, no, we didn't even kill them. Then we brought him back again. It's so weird.
Yeah, the characterization choices in this are bizarre to me. Reno being the comic relief is a big one, and Cloud being Squall Leonhart / Cloud from Kingdom Hearts is also weird. This Cloud does not mosey. He might dilly-dally, shilly-shally, but he definitely does not mosey.
I get that. And on some level, I do think that this movie might be partially responsible for the extremely incorrect perception that Cloud is an emo protagonist. So, fair enough. Also, though, like, it's part of a pretty clear, character arc for him. This whole movie is basically just about the way that he is running from his guilt instead of forgiving himself for, like, what happened to Aerith. That basically he's just in grief and he's not coming to terms with it in a healthy way. So, like, yeah, he's allowed to be a little bit emo when this whole story is about how he's not handling grief well. But I feel like it makes sense for what they're doing with his character. But it is definitely a bit different from the game.
It's just weird that there's like 20 hours of game after that happens and then 2 years happening off screen for that to be affecting him so heavily now, when by the time he got his memory back, it wasn't affecting him that much. And he said, let's mosey. And Barrett was like, please be serious. Like, we're trying to go save the world. Please be serious. So
I could argue, I don't know if I want to, but I could argue that it's sort of like when you're unemployed and you get depressed because of it. Cloud isn't saving the world anymore, so now now there's nothing stopping him from getting depressed about it.
It is kind of true that, like, a lot of the original game's stuff about identity was kind of about finding their own reasons to save the world and such, but it is certainly true that once that's done, Cloud kind of has to make his own purpose, And it's clear that he's been trying to do that with Tifa and with taking care of orphans in Midgar, but it seems that eventually, and with the geostigma, he, was kind of a little too much and he started running away instead. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they justify the choice in the media, but I still think it's a weird choice for them to make and then justify,
Yeah.
It would have been great to have Doofus Cloud at a little more times. Doofus Cloud definitely is the one that locks the door on Reno, but he's not as prevalent as I feel he could be. But
I don't like this movie very much. I like a lot of parts about it, which is obvious because during the summary, I frequently was like, that part fucking ruled. Overall, I think the movie has a lot of problems, but honestly, after they finish the remake trilogy, I would love for them to just remake this movie using a lot of the assets from the remake trilogy. Just use all those assets to remake the movie with a punched up script. Please.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that would be cool. And
Yeah,
I know it's asking a lot to ask for more Final Fantasy VII content.
Yeah.
But I want all the Final Fantasy VII I can get.
I'm kind of the opposite opinion, that I acknowledge that this movie has a lot of problems, but I love it. And not just as a, cool fan service, cool fight with Cloud and Sephiroth and stuff kind of thing, but like, I rewatched it right after I made my Final Fantasy VII analysis video on my YouTube channel. And so, like, all of the themes and meaning and stuff in the story, the original story, was very, very fresh in my mind. And so then I'm immediately afterward watching Advent Children, and, like, it carries on a lot of the stuff that Final Fantasy VII was about, like identity and grief, especially grief, really well. Like, surprisingly well. And there's a lot there that I could say, and I'm sure that all of it would be too much, but I do want to say I love Kadaj a lot. I think that he's an extremely interesting character, especially as, like, Sephiroth is kind of a foil to Cloud in the original game, right? Like, both of them have this this history that they didn't know about, that they find out about, that kind of puts their own existence and identity into question. But Sephiroth essentially descended into madness and tried to destroy the world for want of like purpose and self. Well, Cloud had friends to keep him anchored and managed to, you know, pull through it with a stronger sense of who he was. And so that, you know, kind of thematic tension between those two characters is a pretty cool thing in Final Fantasy VII. I feel like in some ways, Kadaj is an even more effective foil and opposite for Cloud. Because, like, he's this character who is a remnant of Jenova, who has Jenova's cells and who wants to enact what Jenova wants. But he mentions multiple times that Jenova would rather have Sephiroth. Like, that he's here doing his best, dedicated to a purpose that is not his own, part of an ideal imposed on him from something else. But he can't be good enough for it. Even though he's trying his best and dedicating everything to it, Jenova still wants Sephiroth instead. And that eats away at him. Like, it's really, really interesting to me. And it makes him a really interesting and tragic character. And the fact that in the end, like after, you know, as he's dying after the battle with Cloud, that Aerith just like accepts him. Like there's no retribution for this character. There's no like revenge or justice or anything. It's just that he finally gets to be free of all these burdens and expectations and the knowledge that he's not good enough for Jenova and can simply go, and Aerith just welcomes him there with open arms. And I think that's really beautiful and cool. And, you know, it's just, it's nice. I like it. I like Kadaj. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I am somewhere in the middle between liking this movie and not liking this movie. I do not regret watching it today, and I probably would not watch it again for funsies, but it was good. It was fine.
I gave this movie 2 stars on Letterboxd, and let me tell you, would have been 2.5 if they had just made the colors better.
That's fair.
Why is everything gray?
Yeah.
Look, this movie was heavily inspired by The Matrix. And, okay, The Matrix does use colors well. I mean, it's an action movie made within, like, 10 years of The Matrix. So, of course, it's heavily inspired by The Matrix. The Matrix used colors well, but in a way that did appear kind of dull in a lot of cases. And, you know, I don't know, dingy gray action settings were all the rage back then.
I mean, something can do something well and inspire lots of people to copy it poorly. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that was definitely par for the course at the time, though. Everything was brown.
Yeah. Another thing that weirds me out about this movie, they have a memorial for Meteor Fall, and but it's just a statue of Meteor.
And it's a statue of Meteor with the base of the thing is supposed to be Aerith's life stream that stopped it. It has like swirls along it. That base of it is part of the thing. Meteor is gold, but the bottom green part is also part of it, and that's the thing that's stopping the meteor.
Okay, it just feels a little weird to me because, like, I don't know, 9/11 memorials usually don't have the planes in them.
That's true. Very, very true.
I didn't want to make a crass 9/11 joke, but that's the metaphor that came to mind.
Yeah. Again, the real reason is they needed to get Yoshitaka Amano's drawing of Meteor into the movie somehow.
Which is a really fucking good drawing.
Yep.
It is. It's very weird that a circle with a like splooshy on it is so good, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Shout outs to Yoshitaka Amano. He can draw a meteor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Just like for all the problems it has, I've got so many just like notes here on little thematic things, references, parallels. I love how Vincent like compares Cloud's self-imposed exile out of guilt to his own exile that he had done before Final Fantasy VII. Like, just hiding away, not actually doing anything about what needs to be done. I love the way that the kids are... There's obviously a lot of baptism imagery in this, and I love the way that the kids are essentially corrupted by Genova's cells by being baptized at the place where Aerith died, but they are cured of the geostigma by being baptized in the place where Aerith lived. Like, in terms of, the game's emphasis on, like, yeah, it's sad when people die, but their life still matters. That's really, really cool. There's just a lot, like... I think that this movie is better than it seems like it makes any sense for it to be at drawing meaningful parallels and making meaningful expansions on some of the stuff that the game was saying. And that's enough for me. Like, it can be a cool, ridiculous fan service nonsense movie and also have a surprising amount of depth regarding what the movie was saying and what the game was saying in the first place. And those two things together, I'm like, yeah. It has problems, but I like both of those things a lot. So,
anywho, anything else about Advent Children we need to bring up?
One random thing that I will admit I don't really understand. I don't think Rufus had to survive. Like, I don't know.
No.
I could buy the Turks trying to redeem themselves. I can't necessarily buy Rufus trying to redeem himself because he's a piece of shit. And it feels kind of unnecessary. They would have had to write some things differently if he wasn't there. So, like, I'll give that he has enough of a role in the movie that it's not like you could just take him out and it wouldn't matter. There's no reason for him to be there. It just is kind of a weird choice to me. I don't really see why he had to still be alive or what that necessarily adds to it.
I thoroughly liked Rufus being there. I felt like it makes sense for him to be a cockroach motherfucker who
that's fair.
Can't get killed. And I feel like, the way he was portrayed, I felt was effective, and it felt like he was trying to make out like he was going to redeem himself, but really he's just a piece of shit who wants to rebuild Shinra and still be president of the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked it. Don't like Sung coming back because, again, his death was an emotionally charged one with some really good dialogue with Aerith.
Yeah.
And they don't even have him be alive. And then later, Reno's just like, hey, he's like a cat. He's got 9 lives. And that's the entire justification for he didn't die.
Right. Yeah,
but
that's
anyway.
Fair.
Unrelated, did you know that Cloud's motorcycle is called the Hardy Daytona?
What? That's fantastic.
Yeah. My source for that is every single time it talks about the motorcycle on the wiki, it says Cloud on his Hardy Daytona, which is just good.
Is this a different... The screen cap you posted looks like it's from Remake. Is this the same motorcycle that's in that he rides in Advent Children?
It is all the one from Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if it's implied to be the same one or if it got a new one. I could go back to the Advent Children and see if it mentions a name for his motorcycle.
The design is different.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's not important, but that is very funny.
Yeah. But anything else to say about Advent Children or Final Fantasy VII? Because we can't talk about the most important JRPG in history ever again after this moment. We're done talking about it.
Well, I did look it up, and apparently the Final Fantasy VII 10th Anniversary Ultimania said that in Before Crisis, Final Fantasy VII, Song was entrusted with the full cure materia by another character named Verdot. I don't know. And so suggested that he used that to cure himself and get out of the temple before it shrunk into the black materia. So I guess that is the official explanation. And material released after the original game also suggests that he was part of the evacuation process during Meteor Fall. So yeah, that was like a thing somewhere, I guess. I'm just looking at the Final Fantasy wiki.
They can explain it all they want. I still don't like it. I like Tim Dyer. But thank you for looking that up. Cloud's motorcycle in Advent Children is called Fenrir because he's a wolf guy now.
Oh, right.
But that's the name of his 7-part Buster Sword. Do they just...
Well, you remember how the sword slots into the motorcycle? Maybe they're one unit. Maybe you buy them together.
Motorcycle sword. Hell yeah.
Man, in this movie, motorcycles is sword. In Final Fantasy 13, motorcycles is girls.
Mm-hmm.
Square Enix is brilliant.
What will motorcycles be in Final Fantasy 16? We can only wait and find out.
It does occur to me that we didn't talk about the wolf in much detail, and I don't really know exactly what's going on there. The best theory that I've got it, because right before Cloud wakes back up in the pool of holy water or whatever, the wolf, he's in that white dreamscape, and the wolf comes up to him and puts its nose down to his face and then fades away. And so I guess the implication to me seems to be that it's representative of some part of Cloud's identity that he's not allowing himself to have or express. Oh, no. Actually, now that I think about it, lone wolf is a concept. Maybe that's what it is. It's this insistence that he be on his own and,
when in fact,
be away from his friends when he
animals.
should be. Yeah, that's true. But,
no, but I'm saying,
maybe
he's trying to be a lone wolf. Yeah. But
that's true. Yeah. Okay, well, I like that better now. What I was thinking was that it was part of his identity that he basically locked away in order to, run away from things instead of just accepting it, it fades into him. But maybe it just fades away because he doesn't need that anymore and he can be with his friends again. So,
so in Final Fantasy VII, all his identity shit was him trying to run away from the fact that he's a furry. But in Advent Children, he has accepted it.
He accepts it. That's why we don't get any sequels after Advent Children, because they don't want to animate Cloud in a wolf fursuit.
It would be a lot of animation budget to animate that. That's why Red 13 has so little screen time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
According to the Final Fantasy wiki, the wolf. It was not stated in the movie, but mentioned in the making of book for Advent Children that the wolf is a symbol of Cloud's loneliness for lone wolf, and also his guilt for the death of his friends, Aerith and Zack. And so at the end, he says, "I'm not a lone wolf. We had a whole Avengers fight scene with all of my friends. Obviously, I'm not a lone wolf, so I can forgive myself and move on."
And after that Avengers fight scene, I had the actual big final fight scene by myself.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
I think the movie has some problems.
Yeah, it does.
Oh my god. I forgot about this. Tifa Lockhart gives Sora a Keyblade called Fenrir after he defeats Sephiroth. This weapon is the only Keyblade modeled after a modern-day key, a motorcycle key specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? It looks dumb and not in a cool way.
Yeah, I like it, though.
The actual Keyblade looks dumb in a cool way.
Yeah. They redid that concept with Riku's Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts 3, and that one does look cool. Anywho.
That's about as much as I can talk about Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. So make sure you donate lots of money so that you can bribe Bernard to play the Kingdom Hearts series for a long cast.
You're going to have to donate up at least enough for it to be $12 an hour for me to play and talk about Kingdom Hearts. I need $12 an hour for playing and for talking.
Good. Great. You heard it here first, folks. That's what we're going to raise. But, yeah, so that will do it for the week. If you like what you heard here, you should go and check us out on the web at www.rpgbook.club, where you can donate to help us keep the lights on, pay for games, those sorts of things. We have membership tiers, so if you donate $1 or more a month, you can get access to our Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before everyone else, as well as vote on our polls. We just closed a poll for what we're playing next, so next week we will be starting Skies of Arcadia, so that'll be lots of cool and lots of fun. So towards the end of Skies of Arcadia, the polls will open again for whatever game will be after that. So go and check that out. If you like us a little bit more, you can donate $5 or more a month, where we will shout out your name at the end of every episode. So shout outs to Floris, Kaldron, Freddie Rodriguez, Bernie L. Taylor, Aaron524, Vimk, Jfro Prime, and Doho. And then if you like us, like insane amount, you can donate $20 or more a month, and we will not only read out your name, we'll give you a one-sentence shout out of your choosing. So shout outs to Eliza Tantivy. They want you to check out critical-distance.com, which is a aggregator for good games journalism. And then our other supporter, Carr, is a dentist, so his shout out is not for a URL, but for your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, right before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And I am the game professor, Sam. Other Sam.
Toodaloo, folks.
The Mother 3 Wikipedia page is an honorary RPG Book Club host because it quotes Tim Rogers.
Oh.
It says Tim Rogers posited that Mother 3 was, quote, the closest games have yet come to literature, unquote. The problem is, I feel like you shouldn't use a quote like that from Tim Rogers, because half the time he's joking and the other half of the time he's half joking. But also he's usually right.
I think a very important point here is that the full quote is, Mother 3 is, and I know this by heart, Mother 3 is, quote, for better or worse, the closest games have yet come to literature. Which he said while also calling it the third greatest game of all time on the actionbutton.net manifesto. I'm gonna go away now, but I just thought that was important.
Okay.
Also, I've now found out how to put myself on and off stage, so it's like, don't worry, I'm not gonna do it during the recording, but like I could, you know? Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.